Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today we are going to review a psychological drama war film called Brothers. The movie starts with a scene where Sam is thinking about leaving his beautiful wife Grace back home with his two charming daughters as only 3 days are left before he leaves for Afghanistan. He is training with multiple soldiers for a special mission in Afghanistan. He writes her wife a letter telling her that he loves her and saying his farewell to her. It will be sent to her by Major Cavazos in case he dies in the mission. Later that day, he goes back to his home to see his wife and two daughters Isabella and Maggie. The whole family is sad about him leaving. Then Sam goes to pick Tommy, his younger brother, up, who just got out of the jail. A major personality difference can be seen between Sam and Tommy, but Sam loves his little brother. He drops Tommy at a pawn shop and tells him that he will see him later. Tommy then goes to Traveler Motel to get ready. At night, Sam's whole family is gathering together to say their farewell to Sam and to welcome back Tommy. Tommy rings the doorbell and Maggie opens it up. As he introduces himself to Maggie. Upon listening his name, she tells him that her mother doesn't like him. During the dinner, their conversation starts from how Sam is getting deployed for the 4th time in Afghanistan. The conversation takes a bad turn when their father Hank riles Tommy up to how big of a loser he is in front of his brother. Tommy ends up banging the table in anger, as a reaction to his father's statement about him and the prison. Tommy departures from the dinner while telling his brother to stay safe during the mission. Sam gives his wedding ring to Grace and they both end up getting intimate. On October 12, 2007, Sam lands in Afghanistan along with his team, as Sam was traveling with his men in a Black Hawk helicopter. Out of nowhere they get shot down. 2 military representatives comes to Sam's house to inform Grace that Sam has been killed during an attack on his helicopter. Upon listening to this news, Grace starts crying on the loss of his husband. All night she stayed awake watching old videos of Sam. Out of sorrow, she tries to call Sam on his cell phone, that maybe some miracle will happen, and he will pick her phone up. While she is trying to call Sam, she notices some vehicle pulling up in the driveway. She walks out only to find a drunk Tommy who is here to drop a car. Sam told him that he can borrow this car anytime. While Tommy is still talking, Grace couldn't hold it in anymore and tells him that Sam is no more. Listening to this, Tommy goes into a deep shock and starts complaining that why no one has told him before. Grace explains to him that they were trying to reach him all day, but he wasn't picking up his phone. He leaves Grace's place in pure shock and ends up going to his dad's house. On the day of Sam's funeral, Major Cavazos gave Sam's letter to Grace, which he wrote for her before his departure to Afghanistan. In reply, Grace tells him that she still cannot believe that Sam is gone. On the way back home from funeral, Tommy asks Hank to hand him the keys over. He will drive the family car and take them all home. Hank refuses and asks him to earn some money and buy himself a car and drive it wherever he wants to. He further says that he heard how Marines were talking about his brother. He is just a family's troublemaker, who will add no pride to family's name. Tommy replies furiously that his father isn't a saint as well, given all the history with his mom and his drunk tantrums. Meanwhile, Sam and his teammate Joe came out alive from the helicopter crash, but they were captured by the Taliban. Both of them are held captive and thrown into a dark room. While ironing the clothes, Grace gets a call from Tommy. Tommy tells Grace that he is at a bar where he has drank a little bit too much, but he doesn't have enough money to pay for his drink. He asks Grace to lend him $47. Grace asks him the bar's name and goes up there to pay for him. The next morning, Maggie wakes Tommy up from the whisking noise of the pancake batter. He gets up and goes into the kitchen. Grace comes downstairs and thanks the girls for making her breakfast, and at that very moment Hank knocks at the door. He comes to Grace's house to check on Sam's family and sees Tommy standing against the counter. They both end up clarifying their last fight. While talking about how skillful Sam was, Hank says that Tommy also has some talents too, but he quits too early. Hank sits down on the chair and cries as he remembers Sam. Meanwhile, from a peephole, Sam listens to a sound and calls his mate Joe to come and look at the sources of the sound. They see a rescue helicopter flying in the air. They start banging the wood with huge stone. A gun comes right in from the hole as a warning, which makes them stop. In the evening, when Grace pulls up into her driveway, she sees a wagon parked already up there. Inside her house, she finds Tommy and his 3 old friends who are repairing her kitchen. Grace takes him to the side and asks him what the hell he is doing in her house with all these guys. He should have asked her first. Tommy gestures that he is just trying to help her. Grace goes back into the kitchen and asks the guys if they want anything. In a dark pit, Sam is sitting in a corner telling Joe to not tell them anything private. Joe screams at him that they are starving them to get their answer. They can even kill them. Joe says to Sam that he shouldn't have saved Joe from drowning as they are rotting in this pit hole for the past 2 months. Suddenly they hear a commotion outside. Then they are taken outside from the pit hole. Sitting at the back of a jeep, they are taken to their leader Yusef. As soon they came down from the jeep, a man starts video recording both of them. A native man begs to the leader that he is at mistake for jeopardizing their location by calling his wife through the satellite. He was worried about his pregnant wife. They should forgive him and spare him. They then shot the guy in front of Sam and Joe to show them their cruelty. Yusef, pointing at the camera, tells them that this is Taliban's land, and they shouldn't be in Afghanistan. He further tells them to say this in the camera to their fellows in America or they will be forced to say it. The next morning, Tommy and the guys return to Grace's house to pick up their work from where they have left it, while Grace is lying on the bed and crying, thinking about Sam. Suddenly her mother-in-law opens the door and informs her that she will see her tomorrow. She tells her that the girls are downstairs with the guys. Grace goes downstairs, where the guys are telling her daughters how good a football player their dad was. Grace thinks it's a good way for girls to cope with their loss. While Maggie reaches for the tray of paint, she spills it on Owen. He is initially mad at Maggie for ruining his new pants, but then everyone starts goofing around with each other. While Grace goes away to find some clothes for him, she goes into Sam's closet and his clothes reminds her of him. She picks up a few clothes and gives them to Owen. Tommy looks at her eyes, which are all red from crying, and gets worried. She leaves the room and goes to sit in the lounge area and starts crying again. On the other side of the world, in Afghanistan, Sam is tied to a pole and open, and a Taliban guy throws cold water at his face. He is then taken to a room from where he sees Joe in great agony as hot metal rod touches his body again and again. Sam shouts at him and tells him to stay strong and not to tell them anything. As they torture him, Sam gets traumatized by looking at the scene. Later at night, he is shown a video of Joe where he confesses that Afghanistan belongs to its people and America has no business up there. In the end, he takes his wife and son's name and tells them he loves them both. Then the man says to Sam that he knows that he has 2 daughters. Meanwhile, Tommy, after completing the kitchen, along with his nieces, surprises Grace with a birthday party in which he has invited a few close friends and family. She ends up getting very touched with the whole family's gesture to make her feel happy while Sam is gone. The next day, they go ice skating. Tommy, Grace, and the girls bond together. Tommy feels bad about treating a lady employee very badly while robbing the bank. He goes to meet her and apologizes for his acts. Later at night, he opens up to Grace about his past and that he went to the bank's teller during the day to apologize. He almost shot and left her traumatized during the robbery and that he feels bad about it. He tells her that the woman was very nice and offered him to open his bank account in the bank. Grace praises him for making efforts with everyone and amending his relationship with them. Tommy offers her a cigarette and they talk more while smoking. Soon they start getting intimate and end up kissing each other. A sense of regret hits Grace, and she leaves Tommy alone in the room to get some air. Tommy starts crying and later goes to his house. As Grace was lying on her bed, she opens up the drawer where she sees Sam's letter, but she couldn't muster up the courage to open and read it. In the morning, Tommy comes to Grace's house to fix some cabinets. While standing in the kitchen, he says that he doesn't want to ruin anything, and he wants to keep seeing his nieces. Grace agrees with him and says they both just missed Sam. As Tommy was working, his father Hank joins him in the kitchen. He seems impressed with Tommy's skills and praises him. While Sam on the other side of the world is brought by Taliban to an open ground where there are a lot of Taliban soldiers holding a very badly injured Joe. A young boy hands him over a metal rod and he is asked to beat Joe to death, claiming that now Joe is not useful to them anymore. Initially, Sam seems to be reluctant about beating Joe to death, but soon the translator points a gun over his head and tells him that they will shoot him if he didn't do as he is told to. The crowd around Sam and Joe starts cheering him up for beating Joe. Sam starts to beat Joe with the metal rod violently to save his own life. This whole situation gives a big fat scar to Sam psychologically. The next day, American rescue troops show up as they have found Sam's location. The translator tries to kill Sam before he can be rescued by the American army, but fails as he gets shot down. The soldiers end up finding Sam, but he can barely speak as he is traumatized by the last night's incident. Meanwhile, Tommy and the girls are goofing around in the snow while giggling. Grace is standing in the kitchen when her phone starts ringing up. She picks up the phone, only to know that she is getting this call from the American Marine, who tells her that they have rescued her husband and he is still alive. With teary eyes, she tells Tommy and the girls the news about Sam is still alive. They all go to the air base to receive Sam. The family finally reunites, and after this greeting session at the base, they go to their house. Upon entering the house, he sees that how his kitchen is redone and praises how good it looks. Then Sam goes into his room to get some rest and lay down on the bed with his daughters and Grace. Grace is happy to see his husband back home, but she notices him acting odd while shaving. She enters the bathroom whose lock is already broken and he gets startled, says he had locked that door. Then Grace tries to get intimate with him, but he asks her to stop. Later that day, Sam meets his dad, who is very happy about him being back. While Sam was fixing his truck, he behaves like not himself. When Dad asked him to take the car to the mechanic, his father asks him if he is okay, but he refuses to tell. He hopes that Sam will talk about whatever is going on in his head. He shares when he came back from the war he took it out on his family, and he doesn't want him to do what he did to his family. The next day, when Tommy and Sam's family go to ice skating, Sam sits on a bench while watching his family and Tommy with empty blank eyes. Looking at Sam sitting alone, he comes and sits with him. Sam shows his gratification toward him while saying thanks to Tommy for taking care of Grace, Maggie, and Isabel while he was gone. Out of nowhere, Sam asks Tommy that while he was away, did Tommy sleep with his wife? Tommy gets shocked and laughs, thinking that he is joking. When Sam asks him again, Tommy asks him what is making him think like that. He just simply replies that he will forgive them, but he needs to tell him what happened while he was sleeping at his house. Next day, Joe's wife Cassie comes to Grace's house to visit her. She tells her that she hates the fact that Sam is alive when her husband is dead. She is having these nightmares where Joe is trying to tell her something, but his mouth is filled with blood. She looks at Sam sadly and inquires if he knows anything about Joe, and Sam bluntly denies. The next morning, he goes to the army base to meet Major Cavazo. He expresses to him that he wants to go back to Afghanistan. Major Cavazo says to himself that he is still recovering from mental scars he has got from his last mission, and he can't allow him yet to go back in the battlefield. At dinner table, as they were eating, Maggie cracks a joke about animals' ears, by which Sam gets offended. He leaves the dining table angrily and goes upstairs. Grace follows him to their bedroom and asks him if he is okay. He asks Grace about her and Tommy's relationship, as he is skeptical about both of them. Grace speaks the truth and tells Sam that they briefly kissed one time, nothing more than that. He doesn't believe her side of the story and leaves the house to go and visit Joe's grave. Later, everyone gathers together for Maggie's birthday, where Tommy brings over a date. Isabella gets upset by Tommy and starts acting weirdly, which annoys Sam. Sam suddenly pops Isabel's balloon, claiming that she is making too much noise. Upon seeing her father's violent behavior, she lies about her mother and Tommy's relationship out of anger, and further says that she wishes that he would have never come back. Sam gets paranoid and frustrated by what Isabel has said earlier. He starts smashing everything down in the kitchen out of anger while screaming. Meanwhile, Tommy senses that something might have happened in Sam's house. He instantly rushes to his house and finds Sam acting all crazy. He goes and hugs Sam while trying to calm him down. He tries to get the gun, which is hanging at the back of Sam's pant, but Sam acts quick. He takes it in his hand and points it at Tommy. Meanwhile, Sam's parents calls the police, who arrives just in time. Sam goes outside and fires a bullet in the air. Then he put the gun in his head to attempt suicide. Tommy and Grace comes out of the house and starts pleading to him not to shoot himself. With teary eyes, he admits that he is mentally unstable and surrenders to the police. He is then taken away to the Department of Veterans Affairs mental hospital. As he goes away, Grace goes to her room and starts reading his letter, in which he had expressed that he loved her, and he will be always thinking about her and his daughters. Later, Tommy calls Sam in the mental hospital and talk things through. They ends up getting rid of all the misunderstanding they have. After a few days, Sam gets out of military mental hospital, where Grace waits for him outside. They start talking to each other. Grace warns him that she will lead him if he is not going to tell her what happened. Sam opens up to Grace about what happened back in Afghanistan and how he had beaten Joe to death to save his own life, and Grace engulfs him in a hug to show her support for him, while he keeps thinking that will he ever be able to live a normal life again, and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for more great videos. We will see you in the next one.